We're still in the second segment of the morning show right here, 95.7 megahertz. And my guest in the studio this morning, our first interview segment, is Reverend Buddy Aaron Laria, a Barbadian national who participated in the Panafest Emancipation Joseph Project event. He's remembered for one significant thing, a paper he presented as a proposal for consideration at all global gatherings of African family. His proposal is geared towards the healing, let me put it this way, the healing of the African family, and by extension, the world via reparations and reconciliation. He's also championing a cause for October 12 to be proclaimed a universal global day of hope. And he's joined me in the studio this morning. We will find out from him his idea about the Joseph Project and a few other things. He's my guest in the studio this morning. Good morning, Reverend Buddy Aaron Laria.
Good morning, my brother, and good morning to the people of not only Ghana, but the African continent and hopefully further afield. It is good to be in the land of the forefathers once again.
Good to have you around. Let me also tell our listeners that you work with the Office of the Prime Minister of Barbados.
That's right. I work in the Office of the Prime Minister as a project officer in a very unique agency of the government. It is called the Commission for Pan-African Affairs, with a mandate which is unique throughout the world. It's the only department of a government that has a mandate to reach out to all African people across the globe. That is the department which is...
So that makes it very unique.
Very unique.
Good. Now, I mentioned earlier on that you will be remembered for one significant thing, a paper you presented, which is a proposal for consideration at all global gatherings of African family. And your proposal is geared towards the healing of the African family. And you're talking about reparations and reconciliation.
That's right.
What exactly does this paper contain?
This paper contains a critical analysis of, let's say, the problem that confronts the African people of the world. And not only the African people of the world, unless we take the point that all people of the world are Africans because Africa is the mother of civilization. But specifically for the people who have endured the last 500 years of the dehumanizing process of mankind. And that is the Black African family. So this paper has chronicled the legacy of that 500 years, starting with the 12th of October, 1492. You see, what we are doing is reacting to an incident that happened rather than addressing the incident.
What happened on 12 October 1942?
In October 1942, Europeans in their impoverished situation, they sent a convoy led by Christopher Columbus to search for resources outside of Europe. And he ventured on his way towards India. He ventured in what he called the West Indies. He thought he was west of Asia, and he said it was the west of the Indies. And that's how we became West Indians. And he landed on Santo Domingo on the 12th of October. Now, that was the first voyage by Europeans outside, because prior to that, Europeans felt if they go a far distance, they'll drop off the world. We as Africans who have been navigating the world long before knew different. And he landed, and the people receive him as Africans do receive people with open arms. Some people may say that is one of our downfalls. Perhaps it is, I don't know. But the people receive him with open hands. But he carried with him in his consciousness, in his attitudes.
An agenda.
Which they did not realize. And that agenda could best be described as the evil seed. And that evil seed was planted in the diaspora, what we call now the diaspora. And as a result of that,
How was it planted?
well, if you carry a smallpox germ, it's just like AIDS. If you carry AIDS down there and you have sex with someone, you plant the seed down there. The fact that you then leave and come back means your seed is planted. So he carried that. What we carry in our genes is our attitudes, which comes out in our words. And words are very powerful, and we leave them. If I come here now and I say something to you, I go out through that door, it stays with you, what I said. So he planted that. His customs were also alien to the people. And when I say he, I'm talking now about his entourage. I'm not just speaking about him. And the people treat him and his crew with dignity and pride. But what he did, he took back one of them, one or a couple of them, back to Europe. And as evidence, you remember, he didn't just take back things that he found. He took back the people to show to the people in Europe what he had brought back. And that's how the story goes. And as a result of that, the Caribbean, or the West Indies as it was called, was opened. Now so that's the beginning of the seed.
The evil seed you're talking about.
The evil seed, which later give rise to what we are now dealing with. We're dealing with the transatlantic slave trade. We're not dealing with slavery or servitude. We're not dealing with that. We're dealing with a process of dehumanizing the man, or taking a man and breaking him and making him into less than an animal. We're talking about a process where it was said, with all the glory of Africa that the Europeans knew before 1492. They knew about Africa. And they knew that Africa was, let's say, superior to all other people. They knew that. But the slave trade reversed that. So they had to break the spirit, or try to break the spirit of the African. And in the process, convince their people that Africans deserve to be less than human beings.
I see. Now, I am asking myself again that if this same October 12, with all these implications that you've talked about, is the day you want us to look at again and celebrate and say that it should be proclaimed as a universal or global day of hope, why should we?
This is why. Because, and it's very simple.
Yeah.
Europeans glorify the 12th of October. And one might say rightly so, because the 12th of October gave them a foundation and a platform on which to build their supremacy. So it is important for them. At the same time, it destroyed the indigenous people of the Americas, and it started the process of our enslavement and our downfall. Now, once every 100 years, Europeans reenact the voyage of Christopher Columbus, and once again re-engender the spirit of that glorious day, as far as they are concerned, which was called Discovery Day. And after 1492, well, you know, they discovered, according to them, Australia, which according to them, they did not find any people. There were people who looked like you and I, but as far as Europeans were concerned, they were not people. They went to New Zealand, Canada, America. All those were discoveries of Europeans. They were invasions for us. Now, if the 12th of October is so important for Europeans, you then ask the question, why is it that Europeans don't celebrate it every year? It's not necessary. Once they reenact it on the 12th of October, once every 100 years, they, let's say, give authority to the spirits here, and this is where the ancestral spirits is so important. We speak a lot about ancestral spirits. Remember, Europeans also got ancestral spirits. And if we are asking our ancestral spirits to help us, they are also asking their ancestral spirits to help them. So we're not just dealing about flesh and blood. We're dealing about powers and principalities. And that is what it's all about. What we're talking about or dealing with is and addressing is the whole question of good and evil, truth, justice, and peace. So the indigenous people of the area, for instance, they do not touch the 12th of October. They said that the 11th of October is their last day of freedom. And the 13th of October is their first day of oppression. So they celebrate 11th of October and the 13th of October. When I met with some of them and listened to the reasoning, it was good, because since the Europeans celebrate the 12th of October and claim the 12th of October as both Columbus Day and Discovery Day, they wanted nothing to do with it. And I said that sounds good. However, if we're dealing with good and evil, and the 12th of October is an evil day for you, God has taught us that the only way you can overcome
or fight evil,
is with good. So if October the 12th, which has impacted on all the people of the world, am I right?
Yeah.
Based on European history, October the 12th is significant to all the people of the world, not just the African people. European has claimed it. If we, as the people of the world, want to come to a position based on truth, justice, and peace, we must have a day which impact on all the people of the world.
And that is the day you're suggesting,
and that's
the 12th
the day I'm
of
suggesting.
October.
That's
okay,
right.
good. Now, there's two key things we have to look at: reparation, reconciliation. I know in the diasporan region, a lot of work is being done, to bring the people together. When you move to Africa, a lot of work is being done, to unite, black African people, all right, all over, so that we work towards this. How long is it going to take us to do this?
Well, I'm glad that you asked that, a very interesting question, or important question, because as I was explaining to a couple of my colleagues recently, we are at a stage in history where for the first time in history, a window of opportunity has been opened, fully opened. It started back in 1973 when the United Nations declared that for the next 30 years, this was 1973, that they will institute a process to end racism. Racism is the fundamental principle of capitalism. And capitalism is the system which presently governs the world. And capitalism cannot exist without racism. This is very important that we understand that it cannot, because it is based once again, on the exploitation of the poor. And as far as the world is concerned, African represent poverty. But the continent of Africa is rich. So if capitalism is about exploiting the poor, it must exploit Africa. Because Africa is poor and there is...
We're endowed with all the resources,
with all
the
the
natural
resources,
yes.
But we cannot use it. Okay. So therefore, in 1973, the United Nations, coming to terms with the changing in preparation for the new millennium, they institute a process for 30 years to abolish or eradicate racism. Now, the Americans, the United States said, don't do that. You don't understand what you're doing. If we get rid of racism, what is going to happen to us? And that was the same argument of if we get rid of the slave trade, what will happen to us? And there were they set three conferences. One in 1978, which was the conference of the 70s. Then one in 1983, I think it was, which was the conference of the 80s. And then the 90s was to have the final conference to look at the process. But because South Africa was going through the apartheid reconstruction of the apartheid system and for the demise of apartheid in South Africa, they delayed the third and final conference. And then in 2001, they said, we'll have this conference and it will be in Durban, South Africa. Now, that was the first conference where all the people of the world were invited to look at racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance. So whatever issue you have, you were invited there. And that was the conference of all conferences. More significant than the conference which divided up Africa, which was the 1884 Berlin Conference, which was the first, let's say, world conference, was the 1884 conference. But Africans were not sitting around the table. They were just the victims of the decision that was made, the decisions that were made. Now, as a result of that conference in Durban 2001, a decision was made. Unfortunately for me, because of the work that this unique agency of government in Barbados played, we played a very critical role in that conference. It was agreed at the Durban conference that slavery was a crime against humanity. Now, prior to that, we were arguing about reparations. But how can you pay reparation when no one accepted that a crime had committed against you?
So this is where the problem is.
That is where the problem lies.
Anyway, we certainly have to make a headway, but I'm looking at the time again because we'll have to go to the Ministry of Tourism and then we get a representation from there, you know, as far as this program is concerned. I would want us to look at the Joseph Project. You talked about it the last time I spoke to you.
Yes.
And in your view, is it an approach in working towards this reparation?
Very much so. It's critical. The Joseph Project is a good idea. One aspect of it is, though, that it needs to be done right. And the time,
which means that there's something wrong.
There's something wrong. Okay. And what is wrong is that in the book of Genesis, chapter, I think it's 45, when Joseph, when his brothers, confronted Joseph, or he confronted them, he did not went back to Canaan. They went to Egypt, and it was in Egypt that they apologized. So the Joseph Project has to be reversed. Not the diaspora coming to Africa. The elders who, let's say, participated for whatever reason in the period need to go to Africa. And 2 projects has been designed to do that. In Barbados, on the 12th of October this year, we are having an occasion where we are inviting, and I'm making this appeal, especially to the elders or the chiefs in Ghana to come to Barbados on the 12th of October to start the act of repentance. It is called the Day of Atonement and Reconciliation. I've been to Suriname, and there's some chiefs and elders in Suriname who do not understand. They've never were slaves. They jumped off the slave. They do not understand what happened, and they're dying, literally dying, to meet the elders. So I'm asking the elders here to make that journey.
All right, okay.
Yes.
I've just been signaled that we've been joined on the line. The Director of Research, Statistics and Information of the Ministry of Tourism and Diaspora and Relations has joined us on the line. Mr. Emmanuel Hagan, good morning.
Good morning.
Good. Reverend Buddy Aaron is so much impressed with the Joseph Project, and I know you have worked, for quite some time as far as this whole event, is concerned. But he has a problem, a slight problem. He thinks that there's something wrong with the project. It's a reverse. What we're practicing here is a reverse of what, occurred during biblical days. What would you say to this?
I think we have different opinions as far as various topics are concerned. The basic thing is that I think Ghana is trying as much as possible to try build a very strong linkage with the diaspora. For some time now, we've been organizing various activities that are meant to entice our brothers and sisters to come back home or have pride in Africa as the root, somewhere they can always point to as belonging to them. I think this is the basic concept that is pushing all these activities. There might be different approaches, there might be different interpretations, but the core fact is that there is a need to make Africa the home of the brothers and sisters who have left Africa. And this is the core message that the Joseph Project is putting across. And this is where the Joseph Project is clearly defined as not being a duplication of any other activity. The Joseph Project is Ghana's invitation to the diasporans to make the return journey, to reconnect with the land of their ancestors and their brothers and sisters in the homeland. So I think, in a nutshell, what my brother is talking about is about the same thing. We might have different interpretations, different dimensions, different approaches, but the business of the whole concept is that there should be a linkage. We should rebuild the bridges that were broken 400-500 years ago. For us, that definition comes clearly out. If we see that point, we can then look at the alternatives and the various approaches that we can adopt.
Good, I agree perfectly, Mr. Hagan. But in building those bridges, if the right materials also are not used, you know what happens?
Agreed. I think, there's a saying that a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. If this move that has just been made is enough to rekindle interest and bring different ideas that are already in existence or are yet to come out, then I believe we are in the right direction, because nobody is saying that this is the perfect situation that we are put across. But the very fact that we are, eliciting ideas and approaches and different interpretations for us as a family, as an African family, it's a very good start. I think that's how we should do. We should not be rivals and be competing at each other's ideas or holding at each other for doing something wrong. What we are trying to say is that let us see ourselves first as a family. Once that linkage is there, once we can relate properly, we can then have an internal discussions and internal differences, which should not further cast us apart, but rather bring us together.
Good. Now, there's this other impression. The invitation process is fine. There's this other impression that brothers and sisters coming from the diaspora, diasporan region are being exploited. Some of them are being charged fees even to come and settle in their own homeland. What would you say to this as well?
I think this is part of the development process.
Okay.
I believe there is always a business aspect to some of these things. We wish that our brothers and sisters will come and go with no hassle. But as I said, these are developments that have to come about. We first of all have to create the right awareness amongst our own public here.
Exactly.
That whoever comes here is not a brony or is not a stranger. That there's no need to look at him and expect him to come and feed us. We should create the right cultural relationship before we can even understand what happens. But as I always said, something must be started, because if we don't look at it from that point of view, we shall continue remain separated, and we shall our people will still be looking at our brothers and sisters as strangers. We are hitting at the core that they are no strangers, that we all belong to the same core. If we can get to that level, then I believe these questions about exploitation and all the unnecessary things that happen when people travel back to their motherland will cease, because the period has been long, 400 years, 500 years, a gap has been created. We have to acknowledge that. But attempts should be made to level this gap, and this is what we are trying seriously at.
Time will not permit us to go deep into this, but I'm going to arrange a meeting. I don't know how busy your schedules will be today, but Reverend Buddy Aaron Laria is more than ready to sit with the ministry and exchange ideas on this whole thing. So I'm going to do this exactly today, Mr. Hagan.
Yeah, okay, I think that's fine. But I believe Reverend was here, and he took part in some of the programs that were brought out the past week. I believe he enjoyed the programs, and maybe he can make a comment on whatever happened.
He has a lot to share with you, Mr. Hagan. Thank you very much. Mr. Hagan is the Director of Research, Statistics and Information, Ministry of Tourism and Diasporan Relations. So just as you heard him, this arrangement, I think should be...
I would appreciate that very much.
So immediately, let me take a final one from you. We don't have time at all. But then what would you tell the people of Africa?
What I would tell the people of Africa is that at the end of this month, the Government of Barbados is holding what we call a global dialogue on slavery, reconciliation, and social justice. And we have invited and are inviting people, not only Africans this time, people from the global diaspora, to come to Barbados to begin to examine the whole process of reparations as a test case. And part of that reparation is a airline link between the Caribbean and let's say Ghana. At the moment, to get to Ghana, it took me 14 hours. Yet the direct link between Ghana and Barbados is only between 4 and 5 hours. So we are working very hard towards establishing that trade link, not only by air, but also by sea for goods and service. That is one of the projects. So between the 21st and the 30th of August 2007, there's this global dialogue where we're inviting the World Bank, the IMF, the African Union, the European Union, and the Caribbean Development Bank to come and examine about 12 or 14 projects we are putting together to see how we can start the process of reparation. So that is what is happening this
Many
month.
thanks for the time you've spent with us this morning on the Breakfast Drive. Reverend Buddy Aaron Laria is a Barbadian national, and he works in the office of the Prime Minister of Barbados. Thank you very much. We're wishing you well. Hope to see you again in Ghana.
This is 95.7 FM of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, and as you may have heard at the genesis of the program, folks, we've got Reverend Buddy Aaron Laria, a brother from the diaspora who works in the office of the Prime Minister of Barbados. Brother Buddy Aaron is one of the brothers from here in Africa who may have had the misfortune of being a descendant of slavery. Thank you very much indeed, and welcome, Reverend.
Thank you very much, my brother. It's nice to see you and to have the opportunity to say hello to my brothers and sisters in the continent.
Your first time here in Africa?
No, this is my fifth visit to Africa. This is my first visit to find my African roots. a promise I made back in 1986 that I will make a trip to Africa to look for my family roots. This is the trip.
So exactly what are you looking for?
I'm looking for the link that binds me personally to Africa. You see, you can read about these things, you can hear about them, but to search is just like your relationship with God. We hear about God, but your personal relationship with God is the one that really matters. So my personal relationship with Africa is one that really matters. I visited Egypt in 1987. I visited South Africa in 2001. I visited Israel in 2002 and 2003. But this is the first visit to West Africa from whence I believe strongly that I, as a spiritual person, was taken from. So I have come here now, and I know I have found what I came looking for.
Exactly what have you placed your finger on in terms of finding what you've been looking for?
For instance, let me give you, there's some brothers who live in the diaspora like myself, who was born in Jamaica, but live in England like myself. I live in England for some 31 years, but we never knew each other. I came to Ghana, and I have found them. And they are looking for the same thing that I'm looking for. So it looked like if we were two brothers who was taken away and now have rejoined on the continent. I've also met some family here, who are doing exactly the same thing that I'm doing in Barbados. So it means that they are also looking for me. So we have now connected with each other, and we will be doing lots of good things in the future.
How much of a difference would this, trying to find your roots from here in Africa would make to you as an individual, and probably, difference to the black race?
Well, it will make a difference, because I reluctantly say, because sometimes you don't want to, as people say, blow your own trumpet. But if you don't blow your trumpet, who's going to blow it for you? I am a voice in Barbados, national voice. I also have an international reputation, because the work that I'm doing is internationally known. And we could talk about that at some point. So therefore, when I return to Barbados, I will be carrying a message and giving a message to Barbadians and the Caribbean people in a way that they have not heard in a long, long time. Because a lot of brothers and sisters in Barbados don't believe they are Africans, or don't want to make the connection. They are afraid. They're afraid to confront the pain and shame that links with slavery. They believe that the brothers here sold them. They have been sold. That propaganda has penetrated their consciousness. I am here to ask some of the brothers and sisters, the elders in particular, since your brothers and sisters in the Caribbean have that view about you, it would be good if you could pay them a visit and let them know that you are sorry for any wrongdoing, although it might not have been your fault at the time. That's how they have perceived it. So it would be good. So I have set in motion a process. And some brothers from Nigeria is also doing that through a program called Dream Africa that will be happening from the 5th to the 7th of October in London. And our program is from the 7th to the 13th of October in Barbados. And if we can have participation from the AU, we're asking the AU to also send a small delegation, and also the elders or the chief to send a small delegation to these, so that the people, could you imagine the people in Barbados, they heard about the elders, the chief, and They respect that. But they've never met one. So it's just like a myth. What are these chiefs? What do they look like? Do they look like us? Do they speak like us? How do they feel about us? That is something that needs to be healed. But not asking them to come to you. That's not the only way. You must also go to them. Like in the Joseph story, in the biblical story, Joseph said, "Go and tell my father to come to me. Send my small brother to me." He didn't say, "Oh, now that you're here, I'm going to run and go to you." So that is the process. And a lot of not only social or cultural interaction, but we have plans of linking by air and sea Ghana with Barbados and the rest of the Caribbean.
And we're going to talk about that in a bit. But what have you been seeing? What have you seen since you came to
Here in Ghana? Oh, I'll tell you something. I feel not only spiritually refreshed, but the economic opportunities as I drive around with one of my brothers, as I told you that I met a couple of brothers here, as I drove around and I see the opportunities and the concerns, I only marvel at what is possible when I get back to Barbados and share with my brothers. They got some brothers from the diaspora who was building their homes here. And one of the brothers, I went to his home and we went on top of his veranda. And when I looked out at the vastness of the area, and he said to me, "When I come up top here and sit down, I look at my inheritance." You know what that means to him? And another brother I went to see yesterday, who's building on top of a mountain. So when I looked down, I said, "So all you have to do is pick a mountain, buy a spot, and you're at home." And looking at the work that needs to be done, obviously, I am fascinated because a lot of the culture that I see here, selling on the streets, well, we don't have in Barbados the people walking up to you on the streets like the children and things and selling. We don't have that in Barbados, but they are along the roadside and things selling, similar to what you have here.
I would not, want for us to go through the litany of recounting what happened during the days of slavery, but I'd like us to look at the way forward for us here in Africa and for you abroad. First of all, what is it that is wrong with the black race that we do not seem to be able to get our things right, from your expertise and experience?
Well, if we was to go into that deeply with my thoughts, and I've been at this now for 30 years, not just a few years, but if Africa is the cradle of civilization, I believe that to be true. You believe it to be true. But if that is so, and science is now proving that that is so, that means that the people, let's say in the global diaspora, not just the African, as we call the African diaspora, the people in the global diaspora are Africans who left Africa a long time ago. But they don't know that they are Africans because generations come and the thoughts of move away from Africa. Let's suppose that, as like in the book of Genesis with Joseph, God decided in his wisdom to send some people from Africa to reclaim his scattered children. I'm just putting that as a hypothesis. to reclaim his scattered children. If he had chose you, you will say, not me, I'm not going. If he had chose me, I would say I'm not going. So he picked them at random and put us through the most horrible experience so that we will never forget what we went through. But so that when we get to the other side, and this other side now is a global diaspora, because all the people who left here during the last 500 years have penetrated all the world population now and are telling the story of the transatlantic slave trade. They're telling the story and saying to the brothers and sisters out there, black, white, Indian, China, you are African. Africa, the mother country, is calling you home. Calling you home, number one, to respect it. Even if you don't do like the Muslim, if you don't make it back to Mecca, that's all right. Once Mecca is in you, once Mecca is in you, once you respect Africa and understand that the kings and queens that give birth to the rest of humanity, that spirit runs in you. You are African. So when Africa is now in need, you must respond to Africa. If you do not come yourself, send what Africa to give to you, because it gave you science, technology, education. It gave you all these things. And if now it is in need of those same things, it is incumbent upon you to respond, not to exploit Africa.
If anyone has just joined us, this is Unique FM of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. We are live in all 10 regions of Ghana and live across Africa via satellite. And my guest tonight is Reverend Buddy Aaron Laria, who's been involved in the propagation of the story of slavery, and who has been involved to a very large extent in, making sure that the people of Africa, especially those in the diaspora, come together, and who has also been at the forefront of calling not just for reparation, but for justice and equity in the distribution of the wealth of the world, and especially of the wealth of African people. Reverend Barry is going to talk to us about a project you have been involved in, especially the October 12th project. What is that all about?
That's right. The October the 12th project is the genesis of the transatlantic slave trade. Because on October the 12th, 1492, Christopher Columbus' maiden voyage arrived in the Caribbean, or the Americas, and started the process which gave rise to the transatlantic slave trade. There are varying stories on how it started, yes, but the reality of that is that Europeans glorified the 12th of October and call it Discovery Day. And from the 12th of October, they then march across the continent of the diasporas, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, the Americas, discovering. The people say invading, but they say discovering. So they call the October the 12th Discovery Day or Columbus Day. And up until 1985, we in the Caribbean was forced to acknowledge October the 12th, celebrate Discovery Day. It was invasion for the people, But we celebrate it because our masters, quote unquote, told us it was the best thing that happened to us. They eliminated, they eradicated, they destroyed the indigenous people of the Caribbean. It is said Barbados was founded in 1627 by the British. No other European nation ever occupied Barbados but the British. The United States of America, they said, was founded in 1619. So Barbados and the United States is around the same age, just 7 or 8 years difference. And at the time of their founding, Barbados was more important to Britain than America or any other place. It was called the jewel in the crown because it was the administrative center of the whole region of the Caribbean. Barbados was. It was called Little England. And it went to war with Britain. You know, one group of British fighting against another. Back in 1652. Shortly after they founded Barbados, they were so proud of what they found that they challenged the superiors back in
England.
And the Constitution of America is founded on the Constitution of Barbados.
Oh, really?
That's right.
How so?
America went to war with Britain for the war, what they call the War of Independence. It's 1776, around there. As I said, Barbados went to war with England in 1652.
Okay.
And wrote what we call the Charter of Ostends, the Barbados Charter. And the charter is basically your constitution. You're saying this is what we want. So that was signed in 1652. America one was signed in 1776. And so Barbados played a very important role. So therefore, it is just right that the idea to bring a solution should come out of Barbados. So when the idea came to me, through the mercy of God, to put forward that the 12th of October was to be proclaimed a day for truth, justice, and peace. When you take these three words, truth, justice, and peace, you can't get wider than that. Because you cannot have peace without justice. And you can only have real justice if it is based on truth.
And what is the truth?
The truth is, African history did not start with slavery. Africa is not the dark continent. Africa is the continent of light, beauty.
Why are we not telling this story and have allowed ourselves, to be told otherwise?
We, as I said, this was God's plan. Don't blame the people, not even the Europeans that did all this wrong thing.
You mean this was something that was meant to be?
This was something that was planned by God. I believe that I accept that, and God has revealed to me the purpose for it.
Is there any biblical references to this statement?
Well, as I just said, we have just instituted the Joseph Project here. Yeah. The Joseph Project is the story. Joseph said to his brothers, don't grieve in your heart and blame yourself. God sent me before you to preserve life. So we are saying that God put us through this for whatever reason. Remember, there was war in heavens before there were war on earth. We might ask the question, if there's so much evil in the world, if the architect of evil is the one who was the most beautiful of all the archangels, Lucifer, the shining light, why has God not destroyed him and bring peace to the world?
Why is that?
I would say because of love.
That people must go through harrowing, excruciating pain?
No, I'm saying God, I thought you was asking me why God didn't destroy him.
Yeah.
I'm saying because God loved him. He created him.
But of
and
course,
he
it's
loved
being
him.
alive, brings pain and
That's right.
suffering to people.
Because I believe that God is trying to bring Lucifer back to him. If a mother gave birth to 10 children, 3 of them are bad, the other 7 are what we would call good. You can bet that the mother pays more attention to those ones that are bad than the ones that are good, because she's constantly hoping to bring them back.
Okay.
So that's just a theory.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
God did not give me the authority to tell you that is how it is. I'm just putting forward that as a theory. Because whether you're in pain or bad health,
Yeah.
what we call bad health, or good health, or free from pain, you should give God thanks.
Okay. We're quite running out of time, but I'd like you to talk to us a bit about your job in the office of the, did I get it right? Is it Prime Minister, President?
Yes. Barbados has a democratic process. We don't have a presidency. We are still, let's say, the Queen is still head of the country, but that head is represented by a Governor General, and the Prime Minister, who's under the Governor General, runs the country. So in 1998, as a process of agitation and a process of enlightenment on the part of the government established what is called the Commission for Pan-African Affairs. The Commission is a unique instrument in the government apparatus. It is the first of its kind in the entire world, where the government arm was given a mandate to reach out to all the people of African descent worldwide and to bring them together, or help the process of bringing them together. So I was one of the founding staff members of that agency, and I am a project officer within that agency. And this year, from the 21st to the 30th of August, the department is coordinating for the government what we call a global dialogue on the slave trade, reconciliation, and social justice. And this is based on the fact that Barbados Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Owen Arthur, was invited to England on the occasion to mark the 200th anniversary of the abolition of slavery on March the 25th to be the guest speaker. And he made a proposal based on social justice, reconciliation, and truth. And he made a proposal that the process towards reparations should be started. So we are bringing in Barbados all the agencies that can make reparation functionable together. And we are inviting people from across the African diaspora in particular to put forward projects for funding. Out of those projects, we have selected, I think, either 12 or 13, just as a test case to see how the Europeans and the money changers will respond. So that is happening this month.
Okay. And finally, Reverend, how far away or how sooner are we from securing justice for the atrocities that might have been committed against the people of Africa?
Thank you. And let me say this to the people of Ghana and the people of the continent and the people of the world. The window of opportunity, and I said this, I've been at this for 30 years. The window of opportunity that is open to us as African people in particular and to the global diaspora in general is between now and the end of 2008.
That's quite close.
Very close. And the reason why it's open is because we are celebrating the 200th anniversary of the abolition of slavery, which the whole thing is based on. The dehumanization of your mother. You understand what I'm saying?
That's right.
So the window of opportunities, at the moment, no one will prevent or put restrictions around you speaking about the atrocities of slavery, because we are commemorating, not celebrating, we are commemorating the 200th anniversary, not only in the British Empire, which spanned the world. As I said, the sun never set on the British Empire, but also of the America, because they also passed the act to abolish slavery, and we're only celebrating the 200th anniversary of the act, not of slavery itself. So between now and the end of 2008, whatever you desire, my brother, put it into the cosmos. It's there for you. The world can be healed from all its injustices if we submit to the will of God over this 2-year period. God is not a joker, and his mercy is endure forever. But there's a time allotted to everyone.
Do we look ready for it?
If we look ready for it, yes.
Are we ready for it?
I think we are ready for it.
What happens if you don't seize the moment, the opportunity?
Well, my friend, I wrote a book called The Beast, the Devil's Friend, which frightens me because God has allowed me to see the dark side of what awaits us if we don't seize the opportunity he presents to us. And I will say, if the African people do not respond and take the opportunity that is now before them, over now and the end of 2008, and the door is closed, and you know what happened to Noah when the door closed. Slavery could seem or could appear as if it was a garden party.
I'm afraid on that frightening note, we would have to wrap it up on this edition of the show. I'd like to express our token of thanks and appreciation to you, Reverend Buddy Larry of the Office of the Prime Minister of Barbados, for appearing on our show, and do enjoy your visit here in Ghana.
And I thank you very much and look forward to my visit back.